or a lot of people ask me, how much time do we have? Right? How much time do we have before this all happens, the big crash happens? And I like to say is that it's happening right now. We are living through it. But I've often said that we are living through it, but it's in slow motion. Look at how the devaluation of the dollar has taken place over the last just 50 years. In the last 50 years, the dollar has devalued over 90%. Right? So we're going through a crash. It's just in slow motion. However, before the real crash comes, the one that comes all at once, that pretty much wipes away the rest of the value that the dollar may have, or whatever currency it is that you hold in your country, right? Because I believe that when this happens, it's going to affect everyone in the world. When the government comes out, because inflation is so very high, when the government comes out and says that they're going to start putting price controls and capital controls on the price of goods, you better be prepared. Because let me explain to you what happens when the government decides to put price controls on the price of goods. Same thing that happened in Venezuela. All right. And whenever a government or a country goes into hyperinflation, the government usually tries to fix it by intervening. And the government should know better, or it probably already does know. Government is the ones that caused the problem in the first place, and they try to fix it by making the problem even worse. Okay? So if things get out of hand, if prices of goods get out of hand and the people start getting angry, then the government starts trying to do stuff to pacify the people. So what they'll do is this. They'll be like, all right, and I'm going to pick one example just as an example, but you can go ahead and use this example by putting anything in the X spot, all right? But for this example, I'm going to use bread, right? I'm going to use bread. Let's say that tomorrow you woke up and the price of bread for a loaf of bread, instead of it being $3, $4, $5, whatever it is now, it's $17 for a loaf of bread, right? And maybe eggs are $23 for a dozen eggs, right? Let's use some numbers here. And people are going to start getting angry. Gasoline is going up. It's $15 a gallon of gas, right? And all of those numbers that I just used, they're very, very likely, ladies and gentlemen, because when a currency dies, everything goes up in nominal price pretty much exponentially, right? Just take a look at Venezuela. So what the government will step in and do is just say, hey, listen, we are going to pass a law by edict, i.e. executive order or whatever. You cannot sell bread for more than $1 a loaf. And it tells all of the bakers, you will not sell bread for more than $1 per loaf. And each loaf has to be a minimum of 12 ounces in weight. And the bakers are like, well, okay, but eventually I'm not going to be able to sell it anymore. Why is that? Because if the baker buys his products in order to make that bread, and when he makes that bread and pays for all of his overhead, everything that it takes to make that bread, and then by selling that bread for $1 a loaf, that baker is actually losing money, eventually the baker will not have enough capital to restock their supply of ingredients that they need to make that next batch of bread so that they can sell. So they may be able to do this a few times, but eventually they'll run out of capital to be able to buy more stuff, to be able to make more bread. So then what happens, ladies and gentlemen? What happens is this. A black market happens. A black market and hoarding happens, all right? Now, people misinterpret hoarding with what you see back here. Oh, AP, you're hoarding that dish soap because you bought 5 of them. You bought enough for a year and 3 months, so you're hoarding it. No, ladies and gentlemen, that's not hoarding. That's me stocking up on something that I know I'm going to use in the future. One of the definitions of hoarding is this. It's not the one where you have a mental condition. But one of the definitions of hoarding is this, is when people know that there's a crisis. So, for example, let's say someone knows, hey, yeah, bread is going to be very, very expensive because it's not going to be available. So what do? They go out and they buy all the bread that they can. And then when the shortages come, then they go out and they try to sell that bread at a profit, at a very large profit. That's a form of hoarding, right? In addition to the other form of hoarding where people become emotionally attached to things that they can't get rid of it, even though those things don't bring value to their lives. So that's why if you go into a true hoarder's home, you'll see that their home is in disarray, that is usually very dirty because they can't get rid of anything. Their minds won't let them do it, right? They're emotionally attached to everything. Whereas if you're a prepper, right, you're rotating through your stock, you're eating it up, and then you're filling in the gaps whenever there's a gap to fill in, right? But once the government puts in price controls, hoarding will start. People will start to buy more than what they need at a time when everyone needs it in order to sell that stuff, that product, at a higher price in the black market. So ladies and gentlemen, what I'm saying is this. I do believe that eventually here in these United States, you will see that. You will see the government step in and put in price controls. Unless they go ahead and change our financial system. Unless they actually go ahead and have a bank holiday where the banks are closed for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. And when they open again, we'll all be sitting with a centrally banked digital currency, with an app in our wallet. Unless they do it like that. But if the dollar fails and nothing is done and the dollar is allowed to fail, then I believe the government will put in price controls. And price controls will result in even more shortages, and ever more shortages. There's going to be shortages of everything. You're only going to see maybe 1 or 2 brands of one thing. If you're lucky, more than likely, you'll only see one brand of something. Ask Billy and D. Ask Billy. He used to live in Cuba, where there's price controls on everything. The government tells every shop what they can sell what for. All right? And ask them how many different types of brands of rice there are. There probably isn't even a brand. You probably just get your rice in a little plastic bag by weight. Ask them how many different brands of toothpaste there are. There's probably 1, maybe 2 different brands of toothpaste, etc. Just go ahead and expand that out to everything that we normally consume. As soon as you hear someone from the government say, we're going to go ahead and implement price controls, you better hope you're prepped. You better hope that you're prepared. You better hope that you have everything that you need in order to survive. And if you already have everything that you need in order to survive and you're just filling in the gaps, then concentrate on stuff like this. Concentrate on things that make your life a little bit easier, all right? Concentrate on things that smell good because you like the way it smells. Concentrate on things that make your clothes smell nice because you like that. Concentrate on things that bring your family a standard of living that you enjoy instead of just surviving. Stock up on all of those things like soap. I think it was this morning that I dropped that video where I purchased, look at all this soap. Where is it? Right there. I purchased a whole bunch of soap because it was a very good deal and they had like a pallet of it. So I'm like, you know what? I think buying, one of these flats of soap would be a great investment. It would be a great investment because I believe that soap will be a lot more expensive next year. For those of you that didn't watch that video, you should watch at least the first half of it where I go and I pinpoint things that a year ago I purchased and today they are combined 26.5% more than what I paid for them a year ago. Incredible. Especially that olive oil. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, back in March, I think it was February or March, we were talking about, hey, listen, olive oil is going to go up in price a lot because this and this and this is happening. And guess what? The same olive oil that I bought a year ago for $19 today sits at $30, $29.99. So that's more than a 50% increase in price. So ladies and gentlemen, that is my message for today. Make sure that you understand what the word price control means and make sure that you remember that word because when you hear it come out of a government official's mouth saying that it's going to happen, that's it. The time to prep is over. You better go get what you need if you need it and make sure that you get it in quantity because the trip down that real steep hill has begun.